Nikki, I made you something really special. It's an oil-free, gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free meal.
Are you serious? I'm gonna show you how to make actual vegan food taste really good.
Oh, thank God.
Sometimes there's water in it, but...
You don't like this?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Vegan View. Today we have a very special guest. You probably already recognize her. This is Lauren Toyota from Hot for Food, author of the amazing cookbook, the Vegan Comfort Classics. You want to be my Vanna White? Also an amazing YouTube channel, Instagram account. She's kind of the queen of vegan junk food, like restaurant quality, but like at home, easy, delicious stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad we could make it happen finally. Yeah, this is exciting. Thanks for having me.
So we have a lot of people who start becoming vegan and they start making the food and they're like, why does this suck? And we'd love for you to talk a little bit about like how you develop recipes and make stuff taste good.
I mean, that's what happened when I went vegan and was trying to transition into vegan like from 2009 right into 2010, so quite a while ago. I was like, this is okay. Like for the first couple weeks I was eating uber healthy and almost all raw and stuff, and I was like, oh great, I feel good and I'm gonna stick to this vegan thing. But as I kept going, I was kind of like, wait, like something's not right here. Because I used to be excited about food and love food and going to restaurants and eating out and like just being a foodie when I wasn't vegan. And I found like, wait, do I have to give that up then if I'm going to be vegan? And that's where I was having the problem. I looked at recipes, I tried certain things, and just everything always to me fell a little flat, often because it was lacking, let's say, seasoning or spices or enough of those, or perhaps lacking fat or oil or gluten, sugar, all those things that make food taste good. I mean, there is that book, that really famous book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, and that is just that's just a fact. So I think that I learned that really from watching Food Network. Like, I feel like I learned how to cook better just by watching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Oh my gosh, I love that show.
Which I didn't realize was sort of the inspiration behind all of Hot for Food.
Yeah, because it's totally like, that's the kind of food you'd see on that show.
Yeah, and I didn't really put that together till I was making that book. But all along, I'm pretty sure like Guy Fieri and that show and all the restaurant owners on that show informed the things I was doing. Because I remember seeing them make sauces.
It's like
in a blender with like 25 ingredients. And I was like,
I know.
Oh, you can blend all this stuff? Like, if you're not used to cooking a certain way, you don't think about that. And I think that really comes down to like the very limited scope that people have about what they can do with food.
Exactly. I know.
In their own kitchen.
In their own kitchen. That's the thing. You think like, oh, that's a restaurant. I couldn't possibly do that in my own kitchen. But the Vitamix was the first thing I ever got as soon as I decided to go vegan. And it was mainly because I was just like, okay, I think I have to make my own nut milk. So
I mean, a Vitamix is like a sauce machine.
So I got the Vitamix, then I would see these Vitamixes on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and I was like, oh, they're like pulverizing like whole peppers and like marinated
scallions.
Everything. And I was like, oh, that's how I can get like layers of flavor. So that's really what I just started doing. And I think I was always into sauce and flavor and saucy stuff, gooey stuff. Again, doing that and getting to pour things on other things was always like appealing to me. And like that's where like the nacho cheese idea was born, is that like I was trying cheeses at restaurants or this and that cashew cheese, and I was always like,
it's missing something.
Something's wrong with this. It kind of tastes like cashews, truthfully. I can't really remember exactly why that was where it went, but it was adding the jalapeno brine. Like again, thinking outside the box as to what can I use to make things taste good. Like brine, like you would just throw out pickle brine or jalapeno brine or caper brine or sauerkraut brine. There's like all these brines
that are flavor,
so
and
full
like
of flavor.
Cheese has rennet in it, and where are we gonna get something that's kind of that acidic, salty, and using the brine is so genius because it's a vegan alternative.
You're good with rennet is the word the other day that I couldn't remember what the word was.
She's an encyclopedia.
Yeah, she is.
Rennet.
Well, I used to watch so much, like I used to love cooking animal products, and then when I went vegan, I was just like, guess I'm just eating bananas now. And I was so unhappy, and I love really like complex flavors. I'm half Indian, so I just kind of went vegan and forgot my identity. and just was making these really boring foods. And then that's why I started my YouTube channels, because I started making family recipes, but just making it vegan and like trying to figure out how to make stuff taste like the things that made me.
That's the thing, I forgot my identity, and when I was an omnivore, my identity was food. I would go to any restaurant and try anything, try the most famous thing on the menu. Like right before I went vegan, I don't know if many people know this story, but right before I went vegan, I had gone on this trip to Florida and had driven. So I went through Kentucky, all these different places that I'd never been, and ate at like divey places.
Oh my gosh, that's
and
so
even
funny.
ended up, I was in Sarasota, Florida, where there's a big Amish population, and apparently their fried chicken is really like famous down there.
Yeah,
and I ate a ton of fried chicken, and like I was eating things I had never really eaten as an omnivore, because I just hadn't traveled as much at that time. So I was eating all of this stuff, and then when I went vegan, I forgot that I had just done that. It was like this crazy contrast. And I had to come back around to like, like, why don't I just try to make some of that stuff that I ate before?
When I first went vegan, I had a very similar experience to you, where I like identified as a foodie. I literally ate everything. Like nothing was out of bounds for me. And then like going vegan, I was just like, I don't know what to eat anymore. I was watching all these smoothie videos. I'm like, literally, like, it was great for a week, and then I was like, no, like I need food. And one of the things that my boyfriend and I like loved was buffalo wings. Like that was like our thing. We would go get buffalo wings and french fries, scoured the internet, found your video, made the hot wings. Literally life changed. Like we still make that recipe today because it's so comforting. It's something that reminds us of like our pre-vegan days and makes us feel more like ourselves and feel more normal. Like
it's about like feeling normal is a dumb word, but it is what you felt like before when you were just a normal person eating
and then you're made to feel weird.
Exactly. And that's what I love about getting vegan. That's what I love about going to Carl's Jr. and getting fast food, or going to A&W and like getting fast food in a bag like in like less than a minute, because you have this nostalgic feeling, but you also feel like you're a normal person doing what everyone else is doing. But I mean, the cake that I brought you here, these are loaf cakes from the new cookbook.
They're beautiful.
That isn't out yet, but this is my
so
testing,
good.
and these are 10 out of 10 ready to go. So those will be in the book. But I mean, these are cakes, loaf cakes that are not gluten-free or oil-free or sugar-free. They have all three of those things.
They're not like my glass of water.
I don't believe I've ever had I've had gluten-free vegan baked goods, and some are okay. But if you have gluten-free, you also you can't have oil-free. You can't take out every single thing.
Yeah, because if you take out oil and gluten, it's just
what is it? A brick?
It's like it'll just it'll just like turn into dust.
I think for me, especially with treat foods and comfort foods, I would rather have a little bit of something really good than have something that's like sugar-free and dairy-free and gluten-free, and then I'm like
unsatisfying.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
I think people get that, and it's like that book is I feel like I want it to be a staple that people go to when they're really looking to like feel good about themselves and like want to make other people feel good about vegan food. And like it doesn't mean this is your everyday cookbook that you make square meals a day.
You're not gonna eat 3 loaves.
Exactly. But it should be a regular go-to, because you're gonna want to eat those like satiating things, and you're gonna want to entertain, and you're gonna want to share the food with people, and like this is what you're gonna want to show them. You're not gonna want to show them like a raw kale salad with like no dressing on it.
Especially for those of you who like don't live somewhere that has these fun vegan restaurants that like we have in LA, and then like you said in Toronto as well. We're very blessed to have, if we want to go get a buffalo chicken sandwich that's vegan, we can. But if you don't live somewhere, this is the perfect cookbook for you, because this is going to give you that restaurant experience where you get to have these super
classic,
what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a D.
Decadent?
Decadent, yes. Decadent meals, that are gonna like impress your friends and things like that.
The second cookbook is still like comfort food, because that's just what I like making. But I'm trying to incorporate more of like the actual meals I eat on a daily basis.
Nice.
So even if it is like what I used to even self-criticize is like, oh, this salad's not exciting enough to like show people how to make. It's like I put that in the book, because
people don't know how to make a salad.
Yes, exactly. It's like, what's the structure of a salad, and here's how I would make it, and so that's exactly kind of what I'm trying to show. A glimpse into like how I guess a cookbook author or
would eat.
So
That's
with
such a cool
some of this
idea.
stuff in the classics, other new classic kind of still mixed in.
So Lauren is working on her second cookbook. She's writing that right now. And so I think that's really exciting because you're kind of in the throes of recipe creating, and it's the perfect time to pick your brain about how to make vegan food taste better.
Where should I start?
I was gonna say, like, I'm asking as somebody who like doesn't. I follow recipes. That's how I cook.
Like you're
I
not
literally
making up recipes. Okay.
cannot. It's something that I just started cooking for myself within the last few years. Like going vegan was kind of like, oh, you're gonna make your own food a lot of the times kind of thing. So for me, if I don't have a recipe, it's really hard for me to imagine like what flavors go well together. So like we've talked about adding like the fat, the salt, the acid, the heat. Those are all good things to follow. But what about like when it comes to putting flavors together? Like what's your process with like deciding like, oh, this is gonna really take this to the next level?
Okay, that's a good place to start. I think one of the things I've talked about a lot in my content is just like stocking your spice drawer and like you will build it over time.
Yeah.
The way that I kind of started working with that and like understanding what to use was again following how do we season meat.
Yeah.
So if I didn't know, like, it feels like I've always known this even though I haven't. But I'm sure I just Googled like roast chicken and like see what
That's
roast
what
chicken
I-
gets
yeah.
seasoned with. Sage. And then it's like, okay, so now I've associated certain tastes with chicken, like sage, right?
Yeah.
Sage to me is a chicken spice.
Yeah, it's true. It's like the plants that flavor the animal
Exactly.
product. is what
Well,
you
and there's
associate
even
with
something
it.
called poultry seasoning
Yeah.
on the spice shelf. So
Thyme
if you're
and
like,
sage.
I don't know what to do, just buy the poultry
Yeah.
seasoning. Again, it's like, what are the flavors coming
so
from the
good.
chicken? Which also the chicken inherently already has fat, so you need to
Yeah.
add some kind of fat
Yes.
too. Then you need to add oil. So it was really just thinking about what
Makes
meat,
up meat.
and dairy are like, and what any kind of classic comfort food has in it already. So
Right.
it's not like going way off in the other direction. It's staying really within the same lane and just swapping out again the meat and the dairy
Yeah.
for the substitutes that we can use. There are, I think, maybe like 5 or 6 like main spices that I always say like start with, which is like cumin, chili powder, nutmeg, and then something like, I mean, basil, oregano can kind of interchange,
Like the
sort of.
herbaceous.
If we're talking about dried stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So basil or oregano, and then, why am I forgetting the 5th one? Anyways, smoked paprika.
I was gonna
was
say
gonna
smoked
say
paprika.
Smoked paprika is really important
It's
because
so good.
I was
again,
like, she's got to say
Yeah.
paprika because that's what I use all
Smoked
the
though,
time.
I mean, I almost don't even
particular,
use regular
amazing.
paprika.
Me
I
neither. I
always
use
use
smoked.
But it's
I didn't even know there was a difference.
It's a strong.
I have
there's
so
like 5
different,
different
yeah.
kinds of paprika.
There's
There's
hot,
sweet,
there's sweet.
and that's the thing. Most meat is kind of smoked. Like it's got skin that's been charred, so there's smokiness. Like it sounds gross in a way to talk about when you're vegan. To me, it was like I care about obviously I care about being vegan, but when I'm talking about food, I care about the food. So I had to go again back to like, what do we know? What's sort of the main normal structure of food and certain classic dishes or whatever, and then you're creating those building blocks with plants. And the thing is, and I think you just said this, but it is, all the meat is seasoned with plants, but then it's the fat and like, again, the scientific structure of what meat is that releases in with those things and then creates all these different things on the tongue. So you're kind of you're trying to build that in the same way. So you're still using, I mean, cooking technique is another thing that builds flavor. So like searing, roasting,
Frying your
browning,
herbs before,
at what stage you add the herbs and like let them
Oh my
blister and
gosh.
kind of expand and pop. Like this is all important stuff, and that's what happens when you're developing a recipe and you're trying to write a recipe. I've gotten, again, I guess, in a rhythm, and I understand what order things go in, but that's why I always say follow the recipe.
Yeah,
like
read the recipe all the way
and
through.
read it all the way through before you start. If you just look up like standard recipe writing or recipe best practices, like that's why there's a certain way to write a recipe, and like most cookbooks will follow this kind of template. But if you go into a blog with all these home chefs like doing whatever, like I see so much like incorrect stuff going on the internet.
Wow.
I always like to see who's made something like this and how is mine going to be different, or is there like a Joy of Cooking or like a Ina Garten recipe version? What did they do? Like I always want to see like what is someone who knows what they're doing did, and what is just like the general internet doing.
I do that too.
And there is a lot of incorrect technique going on, and that's sometimes why recipes don't work or fall flat. There's so many little things that, like you were talking about the loaf and the way the crumb texture was and like letting it rest and letting the gluten, like there's a lot of stuff that like I'm not classically trained that I don't necessarily even really know, and sometimes I have just like happy accidents. But again, watching Food Network, I think that's where I understood when do spices go in, how long do you saute certain things for. Onions, like obviously letting things cook for longer and sauteing versus like if you overcrowd the pan then they steam and they don't actually saute and fry and brown. So it's like all those little things, all these little things I learned from watching Food Network essentially.
Are you okay?
I just had a revelation.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. Like
that's why like some mushrooms will get super rubbery.
Yeah.
They're too. Don't let them play with each other. Like give them space.
Oh man.
There's a reason why like sometimes it's like brown something, take it out of the pan, let it rest in a certain type of dish, or I say like don't put this fried thing on paper towel, which is like common sense. Everyone wants to put their fried food on paper towel,
everyone does it, but
then it will get soggy, or like put it on a wire rack because a wire rack's like really important. Like when you're cooling a cookie, like don't just leave it on the tray. And like these are all things that
I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, they're like cooking technique, but they actually affect the outcome flavor and texture of something. And so that's really important when we're talking about vegan food, because sometimes if it's lacking like eggs or whatever, if we're also misstepping with like the procedure, then we're falling flat in all these
directions. Then you have two strikes against you.
You almost have to work much more diligently in a way.
So for everyone out there, something really useful would be to watch people make
on
the
YouTube.
original kind of thing.
But that's why cookbooks for me are also tough, and why I didn't necessarily want to do one for so long is because I thought I loved the format of the video, and that's like how I communicate and how I best display what I'm doing, that I was like, it's all gonna get lost in a cookbook, or like, because exactly. We are getting very technical, but I want to get just slightly more technical. Because there's a lot that I think I've mentioned it in like little nuggets and sound bites here and there in the videos, but never as like a whole video, which this just gave me an idea that maybe I should do a whole video just about
the shiz out of that.
Just like almost like a recipe disclaimer thing, because yes, I can write a recipe and do all these things, but my equipment in my kitchen is different than you. Even at the actual temperature of the oven, which I actually mentioned in that book, I say to get a thermometer because the oven reads completely,
especially if you rent and you have an old oven.
You know, it's different. So when you're following a recipe, because if I say saute onions for 7 to 8 minutes until brown, like this was something I learned, is you have to give a time but also a visual cue. Because the 7 to 8 minutes might be on my gas range, but yours might be 10 to 12 minutes or something.
Yeah.
My time might be different than yours, but the visual cue should be the same. So you kind of do have to understand how recipes are written before kind of like diving in. So that's a big key thing. It's just like times and cooking temperatures are going to vary. So you do have to take some responsibility. Like you should know if your oven runs hot and if the oven has more top heat or bottom heat, because you should always really be cooking things on the middle rack unless stated otherwise. Like I'll say move to the top rack, move to the bottom rack, swap trays or whatever. But again, it's like your thing might have like really like a lot of bottom heat, and so if I say middle rack, maybe you have to go upper third rack. Like I don't know, but again, there's a lot of like little tiny things you should know about your own equipment, and then how that may or may not affect something that's being baked or something that's being
like if you're baking cookies and you notice that like they get really brown on the bottom, that would be a good indication, or vice versa. Or if they like this, some ovens have hot spots where like this side of the tray
then
is
you gotta
more than the
flip
other.
the tray.
But paying attention to that can be really helpful, because then you're like, oh, I'm not a terrible chef, it's not me, it's this. And so you just get a thermometer, you pay, or you, like you said, you like switch the racks or you move it up or down, and all of a sudden it makes all the difference, and you actually have food that you want to eat.
The main thing that I just wanted to get out there, because you have to also be a little intuitive with cooking and following recipes at the same time, and know your kitchen and that kind of thing.
Totally. So this might be a little bit overwhelming for some cooks at home. So do you have any simple tips for something like...
Yeah, like what would you recommend to somebody who's like, my stuff just doesn't taste good? Like what can I do to like really like amp it up? Like maybe it's just like a simple vegetable bowl. Grain bowl.
Grains for one. Another good way to inject flavor is when you're actually cooking the grain. You can cook it in stock instead of water. You can add a pat of butter in there with like a bay leaf.
Oh my
Those
gosh.
saucy
So you can cook the stuff with the grain, because often you're just like, okay, water, grain,
Yeah,
done.
literally never think of that.
No, you don't need to do that. You can actually add a lot of stuff into
With
the grain.
oatmeal too, like when people cook oatmeal, they think it's super bland. I always add salt to my oatmeal, and I just think it makes it taste like buttery.
Salt.
Do I need to
flavorful.
be doing that?
No, you hate oatmeal. There's nothing that we can do. But I recommend salting oatmeal because I think it makes such a big difference.
I mean, salt too. Like I say, boil pasta in salted water. That's just like flat, like straight up what every single
Facts.
person
People
does in
do,
a
like,
restaurant.
People do a pinch.
And again, I don't say how much salt to put in, because again, your pot might be different, but you'd need quite a generous helping of salt. Like
They say salty as
Like
the
the
sea.
sea. Hannah's like,
sea salt, as salty as the sea, is what your pasta should be cooking in.
I was like, yeah, I do salted pasta always, but like I'm a pinch.
See, and that is something that, like, while I don't say exactly do that in the book, it's kind of this known culinary thing, but like you'd have to know that. It's kind of also
and
like,
I like never even show that on YouTube if I'm making a pasta dish.
salting the pasta before and adding flavor into the grain while you're cooking it. But I was gonna say, not only do you do that, you also salt the food after. Like there's not always a pre-salt, but like in the cases of pasta and grains, yeah, like cook it in salt, but then also you will salt it after, or at least your dressing. Make a homemade dressing, for God's sakes, don't buy one. But you're
For God's sake.
just make
the same way.
Yeah, like you gotta make your sauce from
Yeah,
scratch. Okay,
yeah.
and like you don't necessarily need, like my favorite sauce is you don't need a blender, even though I still make it in a blender because I just like the
It just
blender and
makes
it's
it fluffy
faster
and
and
delicious.
fluffier. But like tahini mixed with like warm water and like shake it in a jar instead of stirring it in a bowl. Like shake in a jar
Add
with
some air
everything,
into
lemon
it.
juice, acidity. So if you're making a sauce, you need creaminess, I think, fat. Maybe it won't be creamy, but even fat alone,
Yeah.
right? You obviously need like to start with, if it's more of a vinaigrette, you need oil there. Then you need the vinegar, you need the acid. So sometimes that's vinegar and lemon or citrus, or one or the other, but sometimes both. Also add salt and pepper, and then you can also add other spices into there. So like I like putting smoked paprika in like a maple tahini dressing sometimes.
Or you can do cayenne.
Or cayenne if you want a little bit of heat, or sometimes just like any like Frank's Red Hot sauce.
Okay,
Okay, but here's what I want to say: oil versus fat is kind of two different things.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
saying, like, don't be afraid of fat in general.
Right.
I don't care where you get your fat from.
Right.
Because I don't care. But blend nuts into sauce. Tahini is a good fatty
Tahini's
base
so
for a
good.
dressing. Avocado, mainly those things. But it's just like you don't have to have you don't have to drizzle things in oil necessarily. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's
But
also
it's
like
pretty
You don't need
good when you
oil
do.
like every step of the way. Before I went vegan, I used to like saute in oil and then add more oil when I added more vegetables to the pan, and then finish with a sauce that had oil. And there was, I think there is like some value in realizing how much of that is like a little unnecessary. But you're right though, for flavor though, that fat is important.
Yeah. And then back to the bowl, the thing is people will think bowl is like, okay, maybe you have a cooked grain and everything else is raw. Like again, no.
That's a lot
I
of
prefer
chewing.
almost all of my vegetables cooked, except with the exception of lettuce.
Same.
And cucumber. But everything else I
Same.
pretty much want cooked, warm, has a little bit of char from roasting. So again, I mentioned my roasted vegetable salad. It's like,
Oh, I can't wait for
obviously
that.
everyone does this, but it's like, just roast all these vegetables, like cook them down, and then like you're gonna want to eat them more, and you're gonna want to put them on your bowl.
Totally.
They're gonna be easier to digest. You're not gonna, all the chewing from the raw is too much. I don't like it. Think about textures, and I think that goes back to the same as like building a sandwich. Textures, crunch, creamy, salty, tangy.
Yeah.
All these things.
The tang is so important, especially in a bowl, wouldn't you say? Like even-
Acidity is
Yeah.
really important, and
'Cause everything
I
will be really
lean
flat.
I lean to like even maybe probably slightly more acidic than most, because I prefer to have that tang of anything, citrus or vinegar or something. Yeah.
Or something
This is
pickled.
exciting.
in a
Pickled.
bowl.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
all pickled. Yeah.
Pickles
Oh yeah,
or pickled
pickled on a
brine,
bowl.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Ooh,
again,
yeah.
Capers,
Yeah.
anything
Sauerkraut,
briny.
crunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
sauerkraut.
want to cover
oh my
this
God,
whole.
yeah.
You want to cover the whole wheel, not just like part of it. And I think a lot of recipes end up just kind of like covering parts for some
So
reason and
true.
missing.
Then it's
Yeah.
like all these different flavors that make something exciting and satiating aren't there.
I know. When I think about like my favorite bowls that I get from restaurants, they have something tangy, like a sauerkraut. They have like
Fatty.
a tahini dressing that's fatty, and like all of the things that kind of like, and it's salty. Like yeah.
Yeah. I
Very
think one
important,
thing that's
salty.
interesting that people also overlook though is adding a little bit of sweetness to counteract things. Whenever
Oh,
I've
yeah.
added like if I do a tomato sauce, if I add any sugar, sometimes I'll do maple syrup or something. People are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's a spoonful, and it's to counteract the acidity."
Yeah.
You know, or like carrots.
Especially in a
counteract the
dressing.
I
acidity.
do carrots
Right.
a lot for dressing.
Yeah.
Like dressing needs. Yeah, you have the fat, the the oil, the vinegar, and the acid, but then you have to add a bit of sweetness in there. So I feel like we covered some good ones there. I think that was
Yeah.
I think we're helpful.
Super helpful.
Yeah,
We're
great.
We're helping.
We're helping.
Can we eat?
Oh yeah, I love that we didn't eat the whole time. I would be like
I'm just
during
observing.
and eating.
So what is this? This is it smells like
Pumpkin loaf with cream cheese icing.
This is going to be in the second book?
Loaf cake 3 ways. The third one is a secret, I suppose.
Oh wait, this is
it's
a
not
cream
here.
cheese icing?
It's so good.
And that's just like,
Oh my god.
if you don't like it, you can also say.
This is the happiest moment of my life.
I'm like,
She's a witch. Like, this is sorcery. How do you do this?
I like it, yeah. And the thing with me is if I want to keep eating it, then it's done. This one was interesting too, Black Forest, right? Because you're supposed to put Kirsch liqueur in it. And that's
my
like
gosh,
what,
this is so
that's
good.
actually
don't
what
like
makes
that.
it taste like
Yeah.
Black Forest cake when you would eat Black Forest cake like
Are you
kind from
good?
the grocery store, or it would have like an artificial cherry flavor. So I was like, wait, this tastes like nothing. Like it doesn't taste like Black Forest.
How is
but
it so fudgy?
That's a secret that you'll have to wait and see.
I thought I liked you until this moment, and now I think
I love
hate
you.
Also, I like baking almost more, and
Really?
I started baking vegan before I went vegan.
No way.
Really?
Why was
Because I
that?
hated tasting this like metal in all the desserts, which was the eggs.
Really?
oh.
Eggs taste like metal to me. It sounds weird.
Weird.
And anyone who knows me will laugh when they hear me
I
say
think
it
Ripple tastes like metal.
The new cookbook, does it have a release date yet?
It's supposed to be early spring 2021, February 2021. So that one came out February 2018. Wait, 2018? So that's a long time from now, kind of. So my next phase, so I'm almost done testing, and then I get into photography.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know
thank
everyone's
you.
going to be really excited to check out the
Yes.
book and get these recipes in 2021.
2021, the future.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks,
this was
girls.
so fun.
Yeah,
I
this
think
was
I
awesome.
love this.
Yeah.
All right, so we will link everything in the description box down below. Make sure you guys follow Lauren on her Instagrams, on her YouTube channel, and make sure you buy this book and then stay tuned for the next book. You can also follow us. We have individual channels as well. We have a Facebook group that's really fun. It's got a great group of people. Everything will be linked down below. That's all you need to know.
Check it out.
No,
And
it's
if you
not
guys
fun.
have a favorite hot for food recepe, let us know what it is in the comments so we can all
Oh,
share.
yeah, I'd love to
yeah.
share.
Because I'm going to be reading all the comments on this.
y'all.
I want to know.
All right. Bye.
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 Probably.
His bangs.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know who's getting the tiny piece. Sorry, you guys.